So it's been a long time since the last video, 168 days according to my YouTube dashboard. Sorry about that. This video has some very poor camera work in the second half of it. I couldn't be bothered to set up a tripod. This is how I learn, making mistakes. I'm not going to reshoot the video. The content is still good. These exercises are the top two things that I wish I'd been practicing every day for the last 23 years of bass playing. If I'd done so, I would be a much better musician. That's all you need to know. If you don't like the shaky camera work, just close your eyes. There we go. See you soon.
Today we're going to talk about everyone's least favourite subject, ear training. Now, this is something that everyone knows they should be practicing, but no one wants to do the work because it's hard, it's boring, and it takes a long time to see any progress. At least it did, and it does for me. So what we're going to do, I'm going to share with you two different ways that I use, that I have found to be the most effective way of training my ears. I use these with my students. Best of all, they are both completely free. The first method that we're going to use to train our ears actually exploits your brain's addiction to dopamine, the reward chemical, and we're going to gamify the process of ear training in the hope that we can trick our brains into wanting to train our ears more often and actually maybe even enjoy the process. So you're going to need a smartphone and plenty of patience. We're going to download an app called Functional Ear Trainer. It's available for Android and iOS devices. I've included the links to both versions below, so go ahead and download that. So the reason that we're using this Functional Ear Trainer app is the functional method of ear training is the first method that I used that actually felt like it was making a difference to my sort of oral awareness and my ear training progress. What it does, rather than just doing isolated interval drills, which you might have tried before, Functional Ear Trainer plays a cadence followed by a note from the scale. So we're putting the intervals that you might have learnt before in the context of a key, in the context of a scale, either the major scale or the minor scale. And you know, regardless of the genres that you're working in, or you know what you're trying to achieve musically, at some point you're going to have to learn some music that is based on either the major scale or the minor scale. So having a really, really clear and accurate perception of how these notes sound and feel within the context of a key will vastly speed up your ability to learn music. So I'm going to go into basic training, and I'm going to select the first exercise, which is the first four notes of the C major scale. And then before we actually start, we need to do a little bit of setup. So I'm going to hit settings, and then I'm going to move that cadence tempo up to 120. It should be 90 to start with. If you leave it at 90, that's fine, but you'll find that you're spending your whole life waiting for the questions to play rather than getting the answers in. So let's try this. What's going to happen is going to play the cadence, 1, 4, 5, 1, and then followed by one of the first 4 degrees of the scale. And it's our job to work out as quickly and accurately as possible what that pitch is, or what that scale degree is rather, relative to home. So what I'm going to do, as soon as I've heard that cadence, I'm going to try and hum the home note, the one, the tonic, the first degree of the scale, whatever you want to call it. And that'll help to ground me in that key center and give me a better chance of working out what the note is. Here we go. So I'm singing back down the scale. Apologies for singing at you, but we need to get used to it, because if you can't hear it internally, you won't be able to sing it with any accuracy. So it's a good gauge of what your internal hearing is like. So that was 4. I'm going to play 4, and it's going to play me the resolution down the scale. I need to pay really close attention to that, because it's going to help me internalize the sound of that interval. So that doesn't want to go anywhere. That sounds like home. I'm going to try one more, and you know, if you're new to ear training and you weren't able to answer those previous questions that quickly, that's absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with that. I've spent a lot of hours doing this. There's no harm, and in fact it's a really good thing when you're starting out, to just keep hammering each question over and over and just hit that repeat button so you can really get a concrete sense of how that sound feels in the key, and that'll give you a better chance of memorizing the feeling and the sound of the interval, and therefore answering the questions with more accuracy, and crucially hearing those things out in the real world when you're trying to transcribe music that you need to learn for something. Let's try one more. I'm just going to hit that one more time. Again, sounds like the root. Those resolutions are really important. Here's why. I'm just going to exit this, and I'm going to move on to an exercise that uses the whole of the C major scale in one octave. I'm going to hit play, and what I'm going to do, when we get to notes above the fifth, so the sixth and the seventh, functional ear trainer is going to resolve upwards to the octave, not down to the root. And it's really important that you sort of internalize that resolution that it gives you, because that's going to help you differentiate between certain intervals that might sound very similar at speed. Here we go. Second. So that one, the 7, rather than running back down the scale, we resolved upwards to the octave. Major third, and so on. Again, if you're just starting out with this, don't expect to be able to answer all the questions accurately straight away. In terms of practicing this stuff, the most effective sort of frequency that I've found is to do just 5 minutes, but do 2 sets of 5 minutes, preferably at either end of the day. One set of 5 minutes in the morning, another in the evening. We just need tons of repetition, but your ears, like any other muscle, get really tired very quickly. And if you find that you know, again, if you're not used to ear training, they'll tire even quicker. And you'll find that after, if you try and hammer it too much and you are doing 15, 20 minutes of this, you won't be able to hear anything after a while, and you'll just be making mistakes left, right and centre. So better to do little and often and just be happy with that consistent progress. Another thing that I would do, and I have done in the past, is be strict with yourself about your accuracy and your percentages before moving on to the next level. So the app allows you to proceed once you've got 80%, but I think it's much better to aim for 100% on a consistent basis. So I wouldn't let myself move on to the next level until I was reliably able to hit 100% for at least a week doing this every day. You'll get much more benefit if your fundamentals are really, really solid and you've got a fantastic and intuitive sense of the sound of these intervals before you try and proceed to the more advanced things, just like any aspect of bass playing, really. So let's imagine that you've been doing this for a while and you're on the C major scale, 1 octave, all the notes. You're doing fine, but you tend to confuse seconds and sixths because they're both a whole step away from a chord tone, so understandable. And this is something that happens with a lot of my students. They interchange and confuse seconds and sixths when they're trying to do things quickly without repeating the questions too many times. So the cure for this is to focus in on that trouble spot that you're having. So I'm going to go in the app into custom levels, and I'm going to create a new level, 20 questions, and we're not ticking the chromatics box because we're not there yet. Enabled tones. I just want to have 2 and 6 highlighted. Done. I can then go into that, hit play. That's 6. Resolve upwards. And that's 2. Again, paying attention to the resolution points is really important to help you to differentiate any intervals that you're confusing. So that strategy of just creating a level with only the things that give you problems is way more effective than just trying to blitz through hundreds of questions on the same level with all 8 tones enabled and hoping that you can guess the correct thing when it comes to that interval that you're having trouble with. So far we just looked at the basic exercises up to an octave. If you scroll down the list, you'll see that we go through 1 octave to many octaves, and then we split into different keys. That's what not C major means. It puts you in different keys again. Single octave, then many octaves, and then random majors changes key every time you get a new question. So those are pretty taxing. Once you've got all the way through that, up to random major, 50 questions in many octaves, and you can reliably hit 100%, you're then ready to move on to the next stage. So down in the bottom right hand corner, there's this little triangle, which you're going to hit, and then we can select chromatics in a major context. And what that does, it introduces non-diatonic notes, so notes that are not in the major scale. So here, if I go into the first exercise and hit play, really tense sound, right? Let's just hear that again. sounds like flat 2, a minor second. So here we've got, in addition to our first 4 notes of the scale, we've got a minor second and a minor third. So getting the hang of those sounds in the context of a major scale might take a bit of getting used to, and you might find that it's sort of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and you have to repeat each question a lot, but that's fine. You're learning new stuff, you're adding something new to your library of, your mental library of sounds. So again, don't be afraid to just stay with it and put the work in, and it will become, eventually that flat 2 will become as comfortable as, you know, the 1 of the scale, or a perfect 5th. From there, again, there's a whole bunch of exercises related to chromatics, up to all 12 tones in the scale, or in the octave I should say, not the scale, all 12 tones in the octave, in random keys. Once you can do all those things, you're going to be pretty successful at hearing 1 note at a time. And unfortunately, music doesn't always happen 1 note at a time. We have to deal with chords and things. So we're going to go back to the C major, first 4 notes, exercise, hit that. And you'll see underneath the play button, this is Alien Head that says advanced. So we're going to click on settings. I'm going to set my cadence to 120. I've got play together as 2 notes. That means we're going to get, surprisingly, 2 notes at a time. Here we go. That sounded like 2 and 1. Now, it won't give you the option to input the answer, it just shows it to you. There we go. Those little numbers in brackets are the octave, right? You might have seen things on a piano like C3, C4 to differentiate between the different octaves. That's what those numbers in brackets are. The 1 and the 2 are the intervals that we've just had. So again, you might find that you need to repeat that sound a lot. You know, you can try listening in headphones as well, just to improve things while you're working on your perception of 2 notes at once. So that's the app that puts the fun back into functional ear training. That's only half the story though. The second exercise that is very effective indeed, I found, involves grabbing your bass and starting to sing. Uh-oh. So functional ear trainer is great at developing your ability to process and analyze external sound sources. So you might be playing with other musicians or listening to a recording. You get an external sound, and then your brain can pick that apart, analyze the intervals, and put labels on them, so you can either write it down or just play it, you know, play along with people. The other side of the ear training coin is your inner sense of hearing, your inner voice, and that's really important for improvisation. Everyone always thinks that improvisation has to equate to lots of notes and soloing. It doesn't. It just means that any time where you're playing something that isn't scripted, or you have some sort of creative license in your bass part. So for a lot of us, that's quite a lot of the time, right? We're not always hemmed in by written parts or sticking to a particular riff. Your inner hearing gets strengthened by singing. So what we're going to do, we're going to practice a bunch of scale fragments that start off very simple but gradually increase in complexity. And what we're going to work on is our ability to hear these sounds in our head and then recreate them with our voice. It's going to be a 4-step process. All these steps are quite simple. So here we go. Step 1 is we're going to play the fragment. I'm going to start out with the easiest thing to do, which is going 1, 2, 1 in the major scale. So I'm arbitrarily going to start on a C. You will find the best place for your vocal range to start out. Okay, you don't have to worry about being a great singer. I'm definitely not a great singer, but the important thing is that you can match these pitches accurately with whatever vocal sound you are using. You can hum, you can sing, whatever. It doesn't matter as long as you're accurate with the pitch. If you're not sure that you're accurate with the pitch, then record yourself practicing. It doesn't have to be an elaborate, interface setup. It can just be voice memos on your phone. That's all it takes. But you just need some ability to hear what you're doing and gauge the accuracy. So the first thing I'm going to do, 1, 2, 1, I'm going to play that. Not too taxing. The next step is really important. I'm going to replay that sound in my head, but I'm going to replay it as vividly and as loudly as I can. I want to almost be screaming it to myself in my head, but not making a sound. So I'm actually going to play that again and then try and re-hear it as vividly as possible. I think I've got it. So step 3, I'm just going to play the first note and I'm going to try and sing that whole 3-note fragment. La la la. Again, I'm not going to win any prizes for my singing, but I was pretty accurate. In fact, was I? Let me just check. La la la. Yeah, not bad. So, 4-step process. Play the thing, replay it as loudly and vividly as you can in your head, play the first note, sing the rest of the fragment, and then 4, check it by playing the fragment again. Let's try that with the next one. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. So, replay it, sing the thing, la 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 la, and then check for accuracy. You can work your way through the rest of the exercises in this list, which is what I give to my students when they start out. These are obviously not all the possibilities, but if you can do these, you can then work out where you need to go with it. Once you've got the hang of those exercises from C or whatever starting point you felt was most appropriate for you in your vocal range on your bass, it's then good to just get the hang of putting it around different keys, different starting points. So we're going to go back to that first exercise, 1, 2, 1, a major second, however you want to label it. And I'm just going to, because I feel like I'm fairly comfortable with this, I can skip out that first thing of playing it and pre-hearing it. I'm just going to play the first note and try and sing a major second from different starting points. In order to sort of get myself out of my comfort zone, I'm going to use a cycle of thirds. So I'm going to play in C, move up a third, play it in E flat, etc. And just try and sing that major second wherever I go. So here we go. I'm going to start in C. Da, da, da. Then up to E flat. La, la, la. Again, I might just check that. Right, I'm going to go to G major. La, da, da. So I'm just checking wherever I go. B flat. D, why not? Da, da, da. Right, that's quite enough of my singing, but you can hear I'm generally accurate with this stuff, even if my singing is not really up to scratch for being on a stage. Anyway, those things, those 2 exercises, functional ear trainer and singing some fragments, are the best things that I have found for improving my ears, which makes you more valuable in a rehearsal or a jam session, makes you quicker at transcription, and just hopefully makes the act of playing music and listening to it more enjoyable. If you are someone who wants even more ear training, there is one book that I recommend. Books on ear training are a bit like taking swimming lessons over the phone. They're not really the best way to get to the information. But the one exception I've found, I've talked about this in previous videos, but chances are you might not have watched them. This book, which is a beastly tome, it's very thick, Hearing and Writing Music by Ron Goro, is the single best resource I've found for developing a fantastic ear that is not limited to having an instrument in your hands. The real goal of this is to be able to just hear things and instinctively know how they're played and how they're written down without any instrument. I'm a long way off from that goal, but that's where I'm planning to go. And those 2 exercises that we just did will help you get to that goal too. If you have any particularly effective favourite ear training exercises, why not let me know about them in the comments? I'd love to add more to my arsenal and give me more ways of torturing my students. If you've enjoyed this video and you felt you've got something out of it, maybe you've tried the exercises and found that they work quite well, your ear training has progressed, why not tell someone else about it? There must be another musician out there that you feel might benefit from this stuff too.